introduce our District Councilor Elect Lydia Edwards, and it's been pointed out to me that actually one of Councilor Elect Edwards' first appearances in the North End was at a NEWRA meeting, and so we're very happy to have her back, and I will let her take over from here. And I apologize,
No,
could not see that you were here.
Oh,
so.
no, and I snuck in the back so that you probably didn't see me come in.
All right.
I'll just keep it very brief. First of all, thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to the relationship that we will have working together to really create the neighborhood in the future that we want from the grassroots, and really talking to and making sure that we are leading that conversation. It was true, the first meeting I was at, actually when the race had been announced, was here at NEWRA, and so it just only seems kind of coming back to the very beginning to come here and feel welcome here. I'm just going to say a couple things real quick. First, I think in one of the debates or one of the conversations we had here, there was a question about what would we do after we won, and the truth is, and I'm sticking to it, my word is first to say thank you, and again I'm saying thank you, and the second one is to do a listening tour, and that's what I've very firmly committed to doing, and I'm happy to either set one up, or I come here to a NEWRA meeting, to a NUNIC meeting, and to several other community organizations meetings, and literally just listen and hear directly from folks about what they need and want for their community. But I also want to make sure that you understand in the next week or so, I'm going to be meeting with the heads of several city departments, the BPDA, the police, and all of the city departments, and I would love your questions. If you have questions or concerns or thoughts that you'd love for me to raise at that particular moment, happy to do so. It's just the beginning of the conversation that I hope to have on your behalf, and I hope to advocate on your behalf. And then finally, I just want to make sure that folks know that the inauguration is actually January 1st. I've been getting a lot of emails about the NPAC meeting and the Mass DOT and the concerns about making sure that it's still a place for the arts. But that's at my city current job email. And so I'm going to ask you to switch the conversation over to the Lydia for Boston 1 at Gmail so that it'll confuse the two tasks. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Housing Stability, and just because of FOIA and all those different things, we want to keep campaign stuff in the campaign email. And then the city stuff, like the fires that you just discussed, I deal with that. And just to follow up some of the wonderful points and information you got from the chief, I actually received the families who came in from the North End fire to the Office of Housing Stability. We deal with displacements, and the first thing we do is tell people about their rights. We tell them about the resources that they have, how they can get first and last month's rent, and also we start a housing search immediately for them to keep them in the city of Boston. And literally, folks, a family came in with the clothes on their back still smelling like smoke, and we received them and helped them and got them housed, put them in a hotel, and then proceeded to help continue to find them housing. So just know that city resource will still be there when I transfer to the other side, to the 5th floor, while folks should still go to the 9th floor if you have any questions about what to do after a fire. So I am beyond excited to work with you. I am beyond excited to actually be held accountable by you, to be transparent with you about who I'm meeting with, when I'm meeting with them, why I'm meeting with them. And again, if you have questions or points or things that you want me to start working on immediately, I'm already working with my council member, colleague Michelle Wu, on an Airbnb ordinance, and I'd love your feedback on that. I'd love to hear from you, and I humble myself before you, honestly. I'm beyond excited to work with you guys. So thank you so much.
Could you repeat the email address you want us to use?
Sure, it's Lydia for FOR Boston and then the number 1 at gmail.com.
Thank you.
And any questions? Do you have a question? Okay. So feel free. Also, our campaign, I think the number is 617-329-5172. And so Gabriella Coletta is my Chief of Staff, and Judy Evers is our currently staying on as our Charlestown liaison. And we're still working and hiring and bringing on folks to represent the North End and East Boston. So thank you. And I look forward to coming back to many, many more meetings.
I guess I have a question. I don't think the North End is all that different than most of the city. There's a lot of development going on. And I guess my question is, I live in the north end down on Prince Street, definitely closer down to the Charlestown Bridge. We know that's getting ready for construction, and we know that. I guess my question is, who allows or who does the permits that allows, excuse me, jackhammering and a lot of nighttime work? So I'm just trying to figure out how we can live through the growth, which is great. And I understand it needs to happen, but is there a way to make that stop, say, at 11? I mean, is there a cutoff at some point that we as residents can be able to work all day, come home,
sleep at night,
and just to be able to sleep at night? And my problem is with that area is they don't allow that work to happen with events going on at the garden. So they shut that down during a concert or a basketball game or a hockey game, and then they let it start up around 10 o'clock. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how or who signs out to agree to do that or allow that. So, I mean, if you can have those conversations with those various departments, the north end there's a lot of people that live next to those construction sites, and I think they're forgetting that this is a populated area and their work is certainly impacting the quality of our life.
No, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think one of the biggest concerns is making sure we have a seat at the table so that people aren't just thinking about moving cars across the bridge, but actually when you're constructing the bridge, the quality of life that you have on people on a regular basis. So I think part of that, still negotiating part of the contract on the bridge and making sure that there's a couple things I'd actually like to make sure that's part of that contract is we're incentivizing them to get it done on time, right? Or punishing them if they don't. We want to make sure that they're paying for the police detail to keep moving traffic and not us necessarily. We want to also make sure that we're talking about those quality of life issues about noise at night. And I'd love to hear exactly in terms of the time frame that you're specifically talking about. And I'll talk to DPW, I'll talk to several parts of the administration to make sure that that's part of how they're going to operate, because it's going to be a while.
It's going to be 4 years, so the ability to have, communication, letting people know what's going on. And I know there's times in my mind that's going to happen, but the more that they can communicate and allow people to know or get ready for, nobody likes surprises. And I just don't feel like right now as a resident, we have a say in what's going on. It's all about getting done.
Exactly.
We're going to give the contractors whatever they need to get in there and get out of there. And we all want it to get done, don't get me wrong, but I just,
but
somewhere
at
what expense, exactly.
What expense, what community expense do we're going to have? We still are going to be here in many cases, and I think I completely agree with you in terms of how we make sure that our community still thrives, not just survives, but thrives through construction. We're going to have a lot of things going on throughout the district. One of the things I'm looking forward to when I meet with the BPDA is a list of all the properties that they own, making sure that we actually know where and who is responsible for certain projects. Up front on the website, so people actually know who is at the table and making sure that we know who to hold accountable. I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have. There's so many multiple layers of hands touching a project that a lot of us, when we want just one simple thing, right, we don't actually know who to call. So I want to get to the bottom of every single project and making sure that this is this person's or this agency's project, they're responsible for X, Y, and Z, they're doing the contracting on such and such, and making sure you know about it as well. We want an interactive website where you can go and find that information.
Great.
Nighttime construction is only supposed to be for emergency situations. And there was an emergency situation in terms of the bridge was falling apart.
It did fall
at
into
one point
the-
recently,
yeah,
so they had to do it
I-
around the clock.
We
But
know that.
normally construction is supposed to happen at night.
Well, and that's the problem that it is.
Yeah. I have.
During the big dig, we had phone numbers that we could contact the site engineer or the project manager. Can we get those numbers during the construction?
Absolutely, I think that's
Okay.
great. This is the kind of
And they
dialogue.
we had meetings with them once a week,
Oh, good.
Right.
with the big dig people. They
And I
came
had
to our
asked
meetings.
the state is mostly in control of that project, although certainly the mayor's
Because
office
DPW is
put a
definitely
lot of
involved.
pressure on the state to make life easier for us close by. But when the state came in to talk about the project several months ago, I asked if they would set up monthly or quarterly meetings to be able to give us the opportunity to have some feedback and to bring up these issues with them. And they said they would only hold meetings at the beginning of each phase. now. So that means the phase that's going on now, we will not have the opportunity to comment on. And we can bring those comments up when that phase is over. I have no idea how long that phase is going to be. So one thing
I
that
don't
would be
think phase one
great,
is started yet, David.
with
Those
one
were
thing that
emergency
would be
repairs.
great,
No, they have
excuse
one
me,
lane closed.
one thing that
So
would be
there's-
great,
North Washington Street is
But
backed
that's
up
not part of,
24/7.
that's not part of the project, it's emergency construction. It was,
They
I'm
have it
directing
closed
the
because
question
the bridge-
to, and my comment to Lydia. Please get the state to hold, monthly meetings would be great.
All right.
To come in and so give the community the opportunity to comment on how this project is affecting us, whether it's noise or it's traffic or whatever it is. Thank you.
Yes, so you
I'm sorry to
have,
interrupt Dave, but
Thank you.
My apologies.
Take your, I accept your
thank you.
apology.
But I don't think the project has started yet. What they've been doing is emergency repairs.
That doesn't matter. That
It
has
shouldn't
nothing, that
matter.
is not
It
pertinent.
shouldn't matter.
Just very
It is
quickly.
not
One
pertinent
question,
to the,
one question.
the point I'm making.
David,
Please don't interrupt me.
I did interrupt you. We didn't
You did interrupt me.
so, just very quickly.
God.
That's right.
All right. So in any event, yes. So you have my commitment to try and have that. And if we can come up with, I will come back to you with what their response is in terms of whether we can have a monthly meeting. If that monthly meeting will be between my office and them, if that we can open that up so that community members can come to that meeting. We're going to do our best to make sure that you have as much information as possible. I
And
think it's
the opportunity to have a say during the construction, to bring up the problems that are affecting us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have that commitment from me
Thank you.
to reach out to the state. So I have 1, 2, and 3. Okay?
Okay. Do you want to take Bill first?
Sure.
Yeah, Phil Lindell, regional review. During the big gigs, the people doing it, whichever departments, sent my newspaper to NorthEnd.com and the Post Gazette updates every month. And we glad to print them, but we just don't get it. So that would be nice for us doing that, we're responsible for it, to give us a monthly update. I know I can't speak for Matt, but I'm sure he'll do it, I'll do it, I know the Post Gazette
That
will do
says
it.
yes. That's a great idea. Yeah, I love it, actually. I think that actually makes our lives much easier. And then holding the meeting based on what we are been informed about versus being informed and then also trying to come with suggestions, I think is much more efficient. So I like that idea. Thank you. Tom, and then,
On affordable housing, can the city think about, on neighborhoods such as the North End, that's impacted, especially with the development around us, putting in all the luxury housing? In our neighborhood, there's no more land to develop except when a school, a church, a fraternal organization, and the KFC, the Knights of Columbus, is a good example. We're very fortunate that the KFC is going to build affordable housing, I think 22 units. With some of the housing money set aside by developers for mitigation, the North End hasn't seen much or any of that. And I just wanted to know about the idea of a mandatory reporting process that when a fraternal organization, for example, missed opportunities, like, for example, the Archdiocese of Boston, when the Julie Billiard and Columbus and the other gym, those all became luxury. What's wrong with the city using some of the money to purchase the land and then determining development of that? I'm not saying the city's going to start creating public housing, but allowing people to different organizations, or not just organizations, and I'm not talking just nonprofit, to encourage affordable housing. Is it possible? Because the North End, we see none of that money from around us, unless we want to move to another neighborhood, be displaced, and not age in place, and not have our children come back and live here. So is it possible for the city to step forward and saying, no, we want to purchase that for now, we'll land bank it, and then we'll decide?
I think everything is technically possible. I would like to start actually with kind of an accounting from the city of where the money is going, right? When we do have the housing trust and the funding comes in from IDP and other sources for affordable housing, let's actually see where it's flowing. You know, I think we feel it's certainly not coming here, or we're getting a disproportionate amount of it not coming here as they build luxury here, choosing not to build affordable, and instead choosing to pay into the city to afford it. I would like to see actually how much is coming in from projects in the North End, and then how little or how much money is coming back into the North End. I think it's really important to start from an informed basis, so we actually have that. And then we start with, well, now we are contributing a disproportionate amount to the luxury, right? And contributing to this housing trust, but we're not getting our fair share. So I'd like to start actually with that conversation when I meet with them, DND and BPDA, to actually say, let's talk about a full accounting of District 1 and where the money is flowing in or out. And then from there saying, you know what, I think there's some better things that we can do better by this district to make sure more of it flows in, so that we can grow our middle class, that folks can age a place, so their kids can one day, someday buy a place here. I think that's really important though, to start from getting the numbers, firm, strong numbers, and then getting to the results. And I can commit to that, okay? And I'm sorry,
Hi.
yes.
Dave, you mentioned no noise, like if it's unless it's an emergency.
That's right.
A couple of weeks ago, I was woken up at 1 o'clock in the morning. There was construction going on at the corner of Medford Street and Causeway Street. And Medford Street funnels right into my bedroom on North Washington Street. And it was Clean Harbors. It was not an emergency. I went out. They said they had a permit to do the work, but they couldn't do it because there was an event at the garden. They had to wait for the garden event to end. 1 o'clock in the morning, they were vacuuming out a manhole. I don't know if you know what that noise sounds like. They said, we have a permit and there's an officer on duty. And I'm looking around, I don't see an officer on duty. He said he's in the car. And the car, it was a black car with tinted windows you couldn't see inside.
Okay.
I had to look through the windshield to see if there was somebody in there, and he was sleeping. And I tapped on his window and he was startled. I don't know how he was sleeping through the noise. And I said to him, I can't sleep with this noise. He said, you live here? I said, yes. And people live across the street. I pointed at the strata. I don't know how they didn't hear it unless they called and put a complaint in. But as soon as I got back home, the noise had stopped. So evidently it wasn't an emergency. And they were working at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Do we want them
And we're
cleaning the
paying
sewer?
for officers on duty
Yeah.
to sleep.
You know, I think that it would be good for my own education, and I'll probably research and find out the noise policies for construction. And then maybe it's good that that's posted so everyone
I
actually
had all
sees
the,
that.
I had all the numbers during the big dig, but I threw all that paperwork away. And
I have some.
Well,
you still have it? What's the decibels at night?
It's very low.
Is it like 15?
And it had to do with the ambient.
And I know the vac has to be 18 during the, at night, and it can go up to 25 during the
I
day.
remember right
so
now.
that kind of information.
And I couldn't
should
find the
have
meter on the
open
truck because it was
for
dark and I
everyone.
didn't have my glasses on. And
Yeah. No,
we're surprised that we know that information.
I think it should be open, readily available, that we have a consistent standard that we're holding folks to, right? We want to make sure that between these hours, what, you know, how loud things
I mean, I
can
can see
be.
if it's an emergency, but
Yeah.
he said I have a permit. So if you have a permit, it's
That
not
was
an
applied in
emergency.
advance, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes.
One quick question. That meeting with the fire department brought up a few things, and when you have your meetings with the different city departments, talk with the fire and the police so that they can coordinate with each other better.
Oh,
The biggest fear for me in where my street in the tight corners is a lot of illegally parked cars which restrict the fire trucks. And so I know they usually get there pretty fast, or they try to come from two directions because knowing if one's blocked. But there's some really tight turns in these big new fire trucks. It's very hard for them. And I've seen a couple of times when they're coming, hopefully it's a false alarm, but they have to slow down. They're struggling to come down to try to make the turn. They have to go up on the sidewalk. And a lot of times it's just because of illegally parked cars.
right. Okay.
And so the fire department and the police, if they coordinated and went around and said, look, if there was a fire, look at all these cars that are going to inhibit the fire department.
Thank you. I will. I will certainly bring that up about coordination.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Hi. I heard kind of an alarming statistic the other day. I'm in the real estate finance world, so I hear stuff like this all the time. But I'm hearing now with all the luxury development that the luxury buildings, to make their leasing targets, you know, you have to deliver on time and lease up on time for your financing. They're offering such incentives to get people to move into those buildings that regular kind of smaller operators are actually sitting with large vacancies in their buildings. The real estate agent that was rattling off the statistics said he had 17 units vacant right at that moment. And everyone thinks the Boston market is so hot right now. And it is still good. And I would argue luxury product is probably softening. If they're having to give all these incentives for people to move in. The kind of workforce housing units are probably really strong still, and a lot more demand is there for those units. And if it makes everyone happy to hear that the luxury is suffering a little bit, that would likely trickle down into the normal housing stock and make the normal housing stock more appropriately priced.
Right.
But as a city councilor, just kind of like a seed for the future thought process, the mayor's goal of creating so many housing units by 2018 or whatever is wonderful, but somebody really has to start thinking about what those housing units are. And I know you care about that and you've been thinking about it, but it is happening now. The luxury stuff is starting to hit a wall. And all of that luxury stuff that people spent so much money building is going to end up becoming not luxury. And the people that own it and that are financing it are not going to be happy, and that's when things start to kind of go wrong, when you have to start leasing those luxury units at lower rents, and the balance doesn't really, you know, pan out that way. So somebody really has to hit that right away and make sure. I mean, they got to stop permitting luxury stuff, because it's not going to keep renting up, because there's only so many foreign wealthy people with a lot of cash to like rent those units, because regular people that live in Boston are not renting them.
They are not. They are not. Completely 100% agree. I think that that's part of even the office I have right now in stabilization, is looking at those trends and saying where the demand is and where the actual building is. We need to make sure they actually connect, right? Where the demand and the need are our workforce housing, some of the people just starting out, a lot of our students who are graduating, a lot of our seniors who are coming out of the workforce. There's this need for housing and stabilization there, and where the amount of luxury units have probably been saturated. We saturated our market with them, and so what that means is we need to figure out how our community is going to really meet the real demands, but at the same time be building. We do like being a hot market, but it's kind of almost
hot
getting
in the wrong spot.
It's hot in the wrong spot, and it's hot for a temporary amount of time. And stabilization is about building for all time. It's about making sure that we have a growing population, even if it is slower, in order to stay in Boston. And if we're building for a boom, as I've said many times, when the bus comes, what do you do? There was one more.
Yeah, with all the housing going in, you have East Every Street here, the 40 skyscraper, the North Station, and 2 more, so forth and so on. The question is traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic is terrible right now. Sometimes it takes forever just to get into them. With all these new units and cars, granted, the mayor, everybody, the mother wants bikes, but bikes not going to work. You can still do the cars. It's a traffic nightmare. It's getting worse. Before we used to complain, we used to run about the Central Expressway. That was like go wild at the time. Now it's worse. You can't even move something. You can't walk the streets. So I think that really has to be addressed.
It was the #1 priority for me, actually.
That and the bike lane. I heard about the bike lane. We'll talk about that at some other time.
All right.
Bike lane on First Street is fast. When the first accident happens, I'll be the one to stand up and tell you shit.
You can tell me now, but
It's terrible.
I've heard people say, no.
It's helpful. You know what's like? I heard somebody walking on the sidewalk, not on the street, on the sidewalk. Some of those clowns on the bikes flying on the street.
No, we've talked about accountability even for people who ride bikes. I agree bikes are not for everybody. So I want to make sure, though, that I will carry that when I talk to Gia, with the head of transportation. Thank you so much.
We have one
I know,
more
I'm
speaker.
sure. I'm so sorry.
It's very exciting.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just afraid that if we don't stop questions, we won't have access.
So you have my email, and you have my number.
That's
Please send them
what I
in.
suggest, that
Okay.
I encourage people to do that, because I know that we have someone who will be very responsive to us, so please do that.
Thank you so much for your time.